What happened between you?
He knows what he did. She was my wife. You Wookiee sack.
Harrison Ford has reached a point where he has nothing left to prove and nothing left to hide. And now, at 82 years old for the very first time, he's revealing the 7 actors he could never stand working with.
It's too easy.
From fiery personality clashes to bitter creative differences, these people have tested his patience, pushed him to the limit, and turned the job into pure misery. So, who exactly landed on Harrison Ford's personal blacklist? Join us as we uncover the 7 actors he despised working with most. Number 7. Brad Pitt. For Harrison Ford, making a movie has never just been about collecting a paycheck. To him, a film is about shaping characters with depth and honesty, and protecting the story's integrity. He comes from a generation of actors who didn't just show up and read lines. They fought to make the role meaningful and true. So when a young Brad Pitt, then one of Hollywood's biggest heartthrobs, stepped onto the set of The Devil's Own, not only as the lead actor but also as someone who had helped develop the project, it wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a clash of philosophies. Brad Pitt, playing a troubled Irish Republican Army assassin, had spent years shaping the script. His vision leaned toward complexity, trauma, moral gray areas, and inner conflict. Harrison Ford, cast as New York cop Tom O'Meara, respected that vision but wanted more depth for his own role. As Ford explained years later, "Brad had a complicated character, and I wanted a complication on my side too, so it wasn't just good versus evil." Ford recalled, "I worked with a writer, but then suddenly we were shooting without a script that Brad and I both agreed on. We each had different ideas about it. In other words, there were 2 stars, 2 visions, and no single roadmap to follow." Brad Pitt never lashed out publicly. He stayed professional, keeping a quiet dignity during filming and after, but behind the scenes, people noticed his frustration. He had worked hard to bring The Devil's Own to life, and now his co-star was reshaping it halfway through. One crew member remembered a telling detail. Brad would go silent when Harrison spoke with the director. You could see in his eyes that he didn't feel heard. Still, both men avoided Hollywood-style sabotage. "First of all, I admire Brad," he said. "I think he's a wonderful actor and a really decent guy. But it was complicated." Publicly, the feud faded away. There were no lasting insults, no bitter interviews, just a silent understanding between 2 men about how difficult that film really was. Ford eventually called The Devil's Own a movie I like very much. Very much. Brad Pitt never fired back with harsh words either. Time, as it often does, softened the edges. And what about his showdown with Mel Gibson? Let's find out. Number 6. Mel Gibson. At first, Harrison Ford and Mel Gibson seemed very alike. Both were massive box office stars, action heroes with worldwide fans, and strong personalities on and off the screen. But beneath that surface, they couldn't have been more different. Ford built his career on steady professionalism, fairness, and a sense of moral weight that matched the characters he played, whether Han Solo, Indiana Jones, or Jack Ryan. On screen and off, Ford stood for something. Gibson, while hugely talented with hits like Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, and The Passion of the Christ, had become surrounded by controversy. His personal behavior began to overshadow his acting, and Ford noticed. The clash came during early talks for a big action thriller in the early 2000s. It was supposed to bring the 2 stars together for the first time, but trouble quickly grew. Gibson's history, ranging from anti-Semitic remarks to angry outbursts, created what insiders called a toxic atmosphere. Ford, usually private about his opinions, finally spoke up in a studio meeting. One executive recalled him saying bluntly, "I won't share a set with someone whose behavior drives away the people I need to trust to do their jobs." Producer Jerry Bruckheimer agreed, later saying Ford always worked from a base of respect and dignity, while Gibson's actions destroyed that foundation. Gibson's reputation was so damaging that actresses turned down the lead role, and even cinematographers and editors began to walk away. For Ford, this wasn't just a problem, it was unacceptable. To him, filmmaking was supposed to be built on teamwork, safety, and respect. Working with someone who undermined that was out of the question. "This isn't about politics," Ford reportedly said. "It's about decency." Gibson never publicly addressed the issue with Ford, but when asked years later in a 2011 interview about difficult industry relationships, he replied cryptically, "Some people are actors. Some think they're saints. I don't answer to either." Friends of Gibson said he thought Ford's attitude was self-righteous, but he kept quiet publicly, likely knowing a feud with Ford would do him no good. How about LaBeouf? Does Ford feel comfortable working with him? Let's take a closer look. Number 5. Shia LaBeouf. Few modern Hollywood clashes felt as personal and revealing as the one between Harrison Ford and Shia LaBeouf, their battlefield. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The year was 2007. Ford, already a legend at 65, was stepping back into his most famous role after nearly 20 years. Shia, the fiery young star of Transformers and Even Stevens, was cast as his son. Executives were thrilled, fans were divided. From the very start, things felt off. Stunt coordinator Vic Armstrong later explained why. Harrison treats every scene like a piece of precision engineering. Shia treated every scene like an emotional dig. From the first rehearsal, there was tension. Ford, famous for his no-nonsense style, grew irritated with Shia's improvising and bursts of raw emotion, which kept disrupting his carefully timed performance. One minute, they'd be filming a father-son moment. The next, Ford would stop production, trying to reel the scene back under control. Producer Frank Marshall put it bluntly, "There's a big difference between being committed to a character and creating chaos, and Ford had no patience for chaos." The conflict came to a head during a major emotional scene. Shia went off script, turning it into something overly theatrical. Ford, steady and restrained as always, shut it down. Crew members described it as a battle between professional control and youthful rebellion. But the real explosion came later, after the film hit theaters. In 2010, Shia, in one of his brutally honest phases, publicly criticized both the movie and himself. "You get to monkey swinging and things like that, and you can blame the writer, you can blame Spielberg," he said. "But the actor's job is to make it real, and I didn't. That's on me." He added, "If you don't admit it, why would audiences trust you the next time?" He even dragged Ford into it, claiming, "We had major discussions." He wasn't happy with it either. The movie could have been better. It was bold, it was blunt, and Ford was not impressed. In a rare moment of candor, Ford fired back in an interview. "I think I told him he was a fucking idiot," he said flatly. "As an actor, it's my job to support the film without making an ass of myself." Still, Ford softened the blow slightly, admitting, "Shia is ambitious, attentive, and talented. He's just learning how to deal with this business, which is very tough." As for Shia, he never fired back at Ford directly. So, where do they stand now? Does Ford also feel the same towards Tommy Jones? Let's find out. Number 4. Tommy Lee Jones. In Hollywood, some conflicts are loud and messy. Others stay hidden, never exploding, but always there. The tension between Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones while filming The Fugitive was the quiet kind. On screen, their partnership was perfect, so good that it helped push the 1993 film to almost $370 million worldwide. Off-screen, though, things weren't so smooth. The problem started before filming even began. Director Andrew Davis said Ford wasn't excited about joining the project once he learned Jones was already cast. "I think Harrison thought, 'Tommy's a strong actor. I don't want to end up in his shadow,'" Davis explained. Ford wasn't wrong to worry. Jones was unpredictable, often changing his delivery and treating each scene like jazz improv, shifting tone and timing every time. Ford, by contrast, was precise. He liked structure and consistency, carefully building his character scene by scene. They were both talented, but they worked in completely different ways. That clash became clear from day one. Ford was methodical, while Jones stormed through like a force of nature. Their biggest conflict happened during the famous tunnel scene. Jones kept altering lines and reactions, which threw off Ford's rhythm. This led to heated conversations. In acting terms, Ford was saying, "You're messing up my work." Still, Ford kept things professional. He never complained to the press, but the tension was obvious to the crew. One person said, "They respected each other, but it was cold, like two wolves circling." Jones, true to his nature, never addressed the tension publicly. He disliked the media and preferred to dominate rather than compromise. Ironically, that very contrast made the movie so powerful. Ford's calm desperation against Jones's relentless energy created real sparks. The Academy Awards agreed. Jones won Best Supporting Actor, while Ford received nothing. Director Davis admitted he was disappointed. "Tommy got the spotlight, but Harrison did incredible work. I think it's his best role." Ford stayed quiet, but insiders say he was frustrated, not only at being overlooked, but at how the story shifted from his movie to Jones's big moment. The frustration showed later. When the spin-off U.S. Marshals was made in 1998, with Jones returning to his role, Ford wanted nothing to do with it. He never reprised his character, never even acknowledged the sequel. Their story may not have ended well, but another troubling clash was still to come. Let's take a look. Number 3. Julia Roberts. In Hollywood, not every big casting idea works out. Some pairings explode with drama, others fall flat, and a few never even make it past rehearsal. That's what happened when the studios tried to bring Harrison Ford and Julia Roberts together in a romantic drama that never got finished. On paper, it looked perfect. Two of the biggest names in American movies, both loved by audiences. Ford, the quiet, reluctant hero. Roberts, the glowing, warm-hearted America's sweetheart. The studio thought it was a guaranteed hit. But instead of blending, they clashed. Ford has always been about subtlety, saying more with silence than with words. Roberts, on the other hand, is open, expressive, and full of energy. She leaned in, he leaned away. Director Mike Nichols, who worked hard to fix the problem, put it best. Julia's charm needs a response. Julia needed someone to connect with. Ford gave her distance. Cinematographer Sven Nykvist saw the worst of it during a key romantic scene that was supposed to seal their on-screen relationship. Instead, he described it as an absence of chemistry so strong it was almost fascinating. Behind the scenes, things were no better. Roberts grew frustrated, telling a crew member, "He was emotionally unavailable, even in character. I couldn't get anything from him." Ford wasn't kinder. In a rare blunt comment, he said, "It felt like I was acting opposite a performance, not a person." So, was it a feud? But you won't believe the movie star Ford couldn't stand next. And the reason might shock you. Let's find out. Number 2. Sean Young. If you've ever watched Blade Runner and felt that the so-called romantic scenes between Rick Deckard and Rachel were tense, even uncomfortable, you weren't wrong. What you saw on screen mirrored what was happening behind the camera. Harrison Ford and Sean Young had a rocky, uneasy working relationship that turned a sci-fi love story into one of Hollywood's most strained pairings. For Ford, A man known for professionalism and emotional restraint, working with Young in 1982 felt like walking into a minefield. She was intense, fully immersed in her role, and in his eyes, disruptive. Director Ridley Scott said the problem started almost immediately. Sean stayed in character all the time, so Ford often didn't know if he was speaking to the actress or to the replicant. That wasn't a compliment. Ford valued clear boundaries, and her approach blurred them. Add to that 50 nights of cold, rainy shoots, and Ford's exhaustion only made things worse. The breaking point came during the film's key love scene. What was written as a tender, transformative moment turned into something painfully awkward. Cinematographer Jordan Cronenweth later called it the most uncomfortable professional chemistry I've ever seen. Crew members nicknamed it the hate scene because the tension was so obvious. Ford later admitted, in his quiet way, that working with Young felt like navigating a psychological minefield. Young, however, was far more outspoken. In an interview with Variety, she suggested the problems went beyond creative differences. According to her, Ridley Scott had tried to pursue her romantically, and when she refused, he retaliated by making the love scene deliberately harsh. Her relationship with Scott soured, and her tension with Ford was visible in every strained kiss and forced embrace. The feud never exploded publicly, but it never healed either. Ford and Young never worked together again, never appeared on stage together, and never reconciled. When Blade Runner 2049 came out in 2017, Ford returned as Deckard. Harrison's falling out wasn't only with Sean Young. The next actor on the list will surprise you even more. Let's take a look. Number 1. Kevin Costner. The almost collaboration between Harrison Ford and Kevin Costner became a slow, quiet clash of egos and creative visions. The two never even made it to filming, but the fallout left its mark in Hollywood. The project was supposed to be huge, a sweeping Western epic with a massive budget, a respected director, and two of America's biggest stars. Ford, the veteran known for his quiet intensity, and Costner, the Oscar-winning cowboy philosopher with a love for grand storytelling, seemed like a perfect match. From the start, creative control was the battleground. Ford wanted a deep, thoughtful character study, a slow-burn story about the psychological toll of frontier violence. What happens to a man who has to kill again and again just to survive, he reportedly asked. Costner, however, had a very different idea. He saw the West as a stage for grandeur. Big skies, big stakes, that's what the West demands, he said in early meetings. It wasn't just a difference in script notes, it was a clash of worldviews. Producer Lawrence Kasdan, who knew both men well, summed it up. Harrison wanted to explore the psychological cost. Kevin wanted to capture the mythic grandeur. They were making two different movies with the same script. The breaking point came in what insiders describe as one of Hollywood's most polite, yet brutal showdowns. Ford finally asked Costner, "Do you even care about what this character is carrying?" "What he's lost?" Costner shot back. "You're trying to turn an epic into a therapy session." That was the end. Decades later, the two still haven't worked together. So, what are your thoughts on the rift between Harrison Ford and these movie stars? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.